Who were your go-to guys at reality that you turned to for someone to talk to and to listen, to have an ear to listen and giving you advice along the way at that time?
Oh, honestly, it was more of having that locker room bond with the women. And
Okay.
I mean like all of the girls, just because like growing up in wrestling, I never had like that, how do I say it? Like that woman figure in wrestling. I didn't have a girl to talk to
Oh,
about.
a mother, a motherly figure.
Yeah, I guess like a motherly figure in wrestling. Because there's some things in wrestling that just I feel like only girls would understand. And so really at that time when I was just finding myself, I I finally had the chance to talk to other women about like identity issues because it's gonna be different between boys and girls. I didn't realize that,
Right.
but like having that chance to talk to other women's wrestlers for the first time and create that locker room bond, that really changed everything.
On the penultimate episode of the second season of Crash Course, that is a mouthful. We have Mia Friday here. She's I love I love the TGIF kind of a thing. Where did that name come from? I'm very curious.
It came 100% from my own mind. Everyone asked me like, what's the cool backstory? What's the lore? There is no lore. I was 13. I was about to debut. I was like, I can't go out there as Joe Schmo. I need something. And 13-year-old me said Friday, so I stuck with that ever since. I'm not gonna change that. Kind of cute actually.
No, it's very catchy. I was gonna ask that too because I was thinking about that's like it's a catchy name. Like everyone's gonna catch on. It's like it's Mia Friday.
Yeah, I felt like nowadays I'm starting to think it's a little bit corny, but then I think about how everybody else chants it. I'm like, okay, it's like it's corny, but it's for me. Like it works for me.
It's very you. And we're gonna start off our conversation because you started off at 13, and that's a very young age to wrestle. Like, what was the decision? I'm like, yeah, I'll do wrestling as a thing now.
I, I mean, like any other young little girl, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I mean, I I had always watched it growing up. My dad's the one who got me into it. I grew up, I love John Cena. I was like crying when he was feuding with Ryback. I hated Ryback so bad. But I got older, and women's wrestling was taking off, Sasha Banks and everything. I so whenever that time came around, my mom, she was just driving. She saw there's a wrestling school about like 9 minutes from where I lived, and we never knew about it. And she was like, hey, I'm just going to sign you up for wrestling since you can't stop talking about how much you want to be a wrestler. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
It's like peer pressure, but not really.
Right.
And especially with your training, and reality is going to be part of it. You mentioned on our rundown, like what was your first like training ground in wrestling?
So that the training place where I started at, it was called the Lion's Den. And I was there between 13 to 18 years old, pretty much. And I just moved down to Houston so I can train full time at Reality of Wrestling. Because the Lions Den, my hometown is Bryan, Texas, it was about a 2 hour drive to go to Reality of Wrestling. And I would beg my
Yeah.
parents to drive me up there so I can go train as much as possible. And now that I just graduated high school, I'm able to train down here full time.
Yeah, and what was unique about training at the Lions then? What makes it special to start with when you're training as a wrestler?
I I didn't realize like how much the way we were trained stood out from all the other schools in Texas at the Lions Den because it was just it was basics overload. It was nothing but basics, drilling basics all day. And I never realized the importance of that until I started going outside and taking bookings and I got so many compliments on that. To me, it was just like, oh my God, we got to do basics again. But then I realized that really made me as stood out on the independent scene. It made me different.
Do you remember your debut there?
I debuted at 14 years old, and I mean that was a crazy experience. We trained Monday through Thursday at the Lions Den, and it was it was on my mind 24/7. I felt ready for that. I didn't feel like that, like a shy little girl whenever I debuted. I'm like, I'm Mia Friday. So I really, I'm not going to just, I kind of own my debut for a 14-year-old.
What was that like going through that match and knowing what's expected of it? Was like the expectations very high, or you were like, nah, I'll just go wherever the wind takes me at that point?
Oh my gosh, it was always so high. And I feel like I kind of put that on myself, to be honest, because when I started at the Lions Den, I was the only girl and I was also the youngest. So it's just, I'm this little girl in a room full of grown men. And they like, I don't know, they never treated me like that. They're like, you got to do the same stuff that we do. So
That's good.
I kind of felt like it was kind of like really challenging to keep on trying to catch up to be on the same level as them. But at the same time, that made me so much stronger.
Because you're the bar is being set by whoever
Right.
you're facing that night. And like within those 5 years, like what was the advice that you got from your trainers as you got to really know what your move set is, what you are as a wrestler? What were some of that wisdom that they gave you over time?
I like a piece of advice that always stuck with me was how some of the best wrestlers is just them turned up to 100, turned up to 1,000, turned up. It's them. So I don't have to change who I am completely. I can still be myself, but I can just make that larger than life. Cause I felt like any other teenage girl, I felt like I had a lot of like identity crisis, and I felt like the wrestling world had to like go through that with me. I kind
Right.
of grew up and everybody saw that, but I realized that nothing is better than just authenticity. So my trainers, they really taught me to just the best way to really like get yourself over, the best way, like if you're thinking about what you want your character to be, who you want to be, is to just be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Because I was thinking about, especially with that person that you have, it's very optimistic, it's very hopeful. Like, did that character that you have today, did that take time to fine tune to where you wanted it to be whenever you show things, whenever you show your stuff in the ring with the fans?
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like it's the same thing, like in like basically, but it's always just tweaked a little bit as I grow up. I mean, when I debuted at 14, it was extremely happy go lucky, let's go, let me hear it, like real, like cute, basic stuff. But whenever I started getting to like 15, 16, I realized this is kind of like I want to grow up a little bit. So I got to just to really, it was just more of just small tweaks of like, I realized I don't have to smile all the time. Not every promo that I cut has to be so, like I said, corny, so bubbly. So really just the, my character, it just kind of kept changing a little bit as I did in my personal life.
It shows that, and you mentioned it a few minutes back, where authenticity becomes a thing, and especially and I'm learning this like as I'm watching a lot of the guys is doing their promos. You get to see their characters there, but that authenticity that comes from these kind of like a make it or break it moment. So kind of you mentioned, I was like that kind of hit me a little bit when that happens too. So so coming into reality, um and what was the first contact when you wanted to really train at Reality of Wrestling?
Oh, like as in who did I get in contact with?
Yeah.
Oh man, Kevin was just a huge part in everything. Kevin, he's the ultimate, like that guy that's behind the scenes, but really he's the one that's holding it all together. He does it all. He does everything. And after I had that first initial booking when I came to Reality Wrestling when I was 15, the first time I wrestled there, I was like, hey, I want to come back and train. Like how much is it? I like what's a good day to come? And he was like, like it's free and come down here as much as you like and get your work in. And I rode with people from my school. I begged my parents to take me on school nights. And
Mm.
I was able to learn just so much. And it was whenever I started making that drive down there, I felt like a huge switch in who I was and how my wrestling ability.
And what was your first like experience? Of course, Booker T's probably the elephant in the room throughout this whole series. What was your first impression of seeing Booker on your very first few days to months being at reality?
Oh my gosh, it's terrifying. I hope
What?
somebody else does this too. It's terrifying. I It's 100% terrifying. It's intimidating. I've been, living in this small town my whole life. And I mean, it's not like we just have, WWE Hall of Famers just walking around at our
Yeah.
school. It was so scary. But just like the more I got to know him, especially after I won the Diamonds Championship, I'm just like, oh, it's a really chill dude. Oh, like he could be my uncle. I don't mean that in a rude way, but he could be my uncle.
Yeah.
He's so chill. So at first I was scared to death. I'm talking like no eye contact or anything, but over time it definitely I warmed up to it.
You mentioned on the pre-production that there was a thing called breakout. Can you elaborate that and how that became part of what you're doing at Reality of Wrestling being at
Yeah.
the time?
I was 15 years old and they were doing a show called Breakout where they were trying to find the superstars of tomorrow. So a lot of talent coming in from all across Texas to get on the show just so, they can see what we have. And me and two other guys came down there to work the show and I wrestled Roxanne. And I me personally watching that back, I'm like, this match is trash. I don't ever want to see this again. But that match really did change everything because after that I kept on coming back and they kept they kept booking me on every show. They kept believing in me even when I'm telling you I cannot watch those matches back on the Reality of Wrestling channel because I mean I'm 15. I was actually scared wrestling like back in Bryan, back in my home school, it was so much easier. But this is like the lights are on you and Booker T is watching. So when I watch those matches back, I feel like oh, I look so scared. But the thing is, they never gave up on me, and they kept bringing me back. And that's how I ended up here.
Because what I was thinking too is confidence really big plays a big part in someone's wrestling journey, and is specifically in Reality of Wrestling. How did that get built over time? Because of course, like coming in from a small town, of course, like in Bryan, where it's in Houston, it's miles and leaps better in terms of how wrestling is. Like, how did that confidence build over time over at Reality?
It definitely took a while because, like you said, in Bryan, I'm the only female wrestler in Bryan, first of all. So
Okay,
it
all
was,
right.
I was wrestling guys. I was kind of not really competing with them. I'm like, I'm the best women's wrestler because I'm the only one. It took so much. The only way I could really get my confidence up was to keep on training and to just
Mm.
keep on wrestling matches because I had to keep shaking off those, that stiffness that I was getting when I would get under those bright lights and I would get on TV. So it was just a slow process of just warming up to everything. After you have those lights on you for so long, it becomes routine. Then you can start focusing on, okay, then I'll start being
Oh.
myself and everything. So I'm really hard headed. I can't listen to advice when somebody's like, just open up. No, it's not that easy for me at least. But just experience is what was able to just help me feel more confident, feel more comfortable out there.
Who were your go-to guys at Reality that you turned to for someone to talk to and to listen, to have an ear to listen and giving you advice along the way at that time?
Oh, honestly, it was more of having that locker room bond with the women. And
Okay.
I mean like all of the girls just because like growing up in wrestling, I never had like that. How do I say it? Like that woman figure in wrestling. I didn't have a girl to talk to
Oh,
about.
a motherly figure.
Yeah, I guess like a motherly figure in wrestling. Because there's some things in wrestling that just I feel like only girls would understand. And so really at that time when I was just finding myself, I I finally had the chance to talk to other women about like identity issues because it's going to be different between boys and girls. I didn't realize that.
Right.
But like having that chance to talk to other women's wrestlers for the first time and create that locker room bond, that really changed everything.
And how important was it to have like to someone to confide to? And I'm going to go back to the prior question. How did that segue into building confidence in what you do in the ring?
I mean, I was able to have like a sisterhood. I feel like back at when I was training at the Lions Den, it felt like me against all the guys. I'm constantly trying to prove myself, you know. I like,
Right.
you know, it's a small town, so of course there's always like that whole like, you know, you're a girl. What do you- that
You're
whole
different.
right. So I was finally able to share those same problems with someone who understands, and it didn't feel like
Right.
against the world anymore.
Yeah, because like after that time, and how long have you been training in reality?
I guess technically it would be from age 15 is when I started going down from there till now, and I'm 18 now.
So that's 2019, I think. Would that be the year?
20,
Was that
2020.
2020? Oh my god, I'm way behind. But throughout that time within that span of training, and um, how is it different than training back in Bryan at Lions Den?
it's it's so much more stricter, but it really helps me focus. 'Cause at the Lions Den, it was really I felt like it wasn't if you messed up, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. You know, there's music playing in the background, everybody's hanging out. It was more kind of like a family vibe. But at Reality of Wrestling, from like the moment you step in, you know, the building's gigantic, the rings, everything's just so beautiful. It's kind of intimidating. And whenever training starts, it's serious. There's no music playing in the background. There's no like chit chatting on the outside of the ring. It really is just focusing on like honing in on your craft. And it it was something that I needed, to be honest, because I feel like
Okay.
back at my last school, they kind of felt bad about giving me critiques about what I did wrong because they didn't want to like hurt my feelings, you know. But here, they'll tell me. They'll be like, "That sucked." Like, what the hell is that, Mia? And just on top of that, it's just so many great veterans you can get advice from. I mean, Brian Keith,
Mm.
Brian Davison is just, I was able to level up just so quickly.
What were some common feedback that you got from whether it's your peers or with the coaches? What were some of those, like, you can improve in this, or what can you do to elevate yourself in that area?
Oh my gosh, for the longest, and like, oh, don't like, I still have it now. I, I
It's good intentions. That's still there. And how did that, like, what was some common things that you learned from that? It's not necessarily like in a bad connotation, but rather how did that feedback improve to what you're doing in the ring? So it's not really like a bashing kind of a thing, but you learn from that experience. And how did you improve from that critique?
yeah, I've always thrown like from the day I've started, I've always thrown terrible punches, terrible strikes. It's always been horrible. And I mean, like the progression is it went from horrible to like less horrible. It's that's
Wow, I've never heard that. It's like I went okay to somewhat okay.
even to this day, I still get yelled at for that, but it really does motivate me because I like whenever someone tells me that I'm throwing weak shots, I take that personal. I'm like, oh, so you think
Oh,
I'm a girl, I can't throw it. So I think like, especially here, like at Reality of Wrestling, since they're a little bit like they're more tougher on me, it's helped
right.
me improve so much with my strikes just because like, like I'm sick of this. Like I'm sick. Now I actually want to really go into this.
And of course, like with the hard work that you're going through, a lot of it paid off because you had Diamonds Championship, and that has a very, very respectable roster of people who got the Diamonds Championship. When they made the call and saying it's a title change, and when you had that, do you remember the match that you won that from, and what was that feeling like hearing and new when that belt is handed to you?
Man, it was it was back in December. It was a big like multi person match. And I don't know, I can't remember if I knew in advance if I was going to win it or not. Like I just did. I I don't remember like somebody telling me like, hey, on this day you're going to win it. It happened on that date. And I remember whenever they told me, whenever it said and new, I like I don't know if you can see it in the episode, like I make a crying face, but then I realize like I'm in front of so many people under all the lights, I'm like
It's like, yep, I won, sure.
yeah, I guess it goes back to what I was saying to where I feel like even to this day I'm still trying to get so comfortable under the lights because I was like, oh, I don't want to cry like in front of everybody. But I really was emotional just thinking about like from the day that I started training, that was, I that was my one of my number one goals. And it felt like it makes you just think back on the journey. It makes you think about all the times that, you cried because you weren't as good as everybody else you were training with, all those times where you didn't know who you were. It it kind of felt just like it made me, I guess you could say like a full circle moment, but it was a big accomplishment for it was something that just I set my sights on and I was able to do it. It was I accomplished it. And so I was really emotional over that.
And how did the training from both the Lions Den and Reality, how did that culminate into getting that title change with the Diamonds Championship?
I feel like really what it was the Lions Den. It taught me to be tough. It taught me to wear thicker skin. Just like I said, being around all those guys and not trying to keep beating myself up over things, and also being alone in a lot of situations where
Mm,
I couldn't go to other people for that. So I feel
right.
like there I was just able to build myself like mentally and as a person, my character. And then at Reality of Wrestling, I was able to just really expand my wrestling skills and really just make myself proud when I watch back a match and not be like, oh, I don't want to see that. So a great combination of just finding out who I was and then becoming the best version of myself. I feel like it all led up to that.
Do you think with each title defense has that standard um, been raised with each defense that you faced, and how did reality kind of push you and elevate you to do these title defenses down the line?
Uh, wait, re-explain.
So I've had a guest on before, and with their title defense, it's like the standards and the bar gets higher over time with each of these title defenses, especially when you're training with reality. How did they elevate you as the champion with each of those title defenses?
I finally felt real pressure. I I always felt like I always like I guess people would go just a little bit light on me just because, I'm young and I'm young and like I'm just getting started in my career. But once I won that championship, it was like no more excuses. Like, you got to be grown today. This is,
Yeah.
yeah, you're representing our company. And I kind of liked how when I had that championship, it was, no more excuses. It's all up to me. And the championship, it just really helped me. Like, I was training because the pressure was on me, when I feel like before it really wasn't. And they definitely, like, especially during training, they'd be like, "Come on, you're the champ." I'm like, "Oh, you're." I would get so
It's like
so
you have like a little dot on your back, like, oh, I gotta defend this title. I gotta remind myself.
because I'm just so used to, I guess, like, getting away with stuff. They're like, "You know what? She's like young, like it's okay." But now it's like, "No, it's not okay. You need to go do it again." So like winning the championship, I loved how, I guess you could say, was kind of I finally got that adult treatment that I was looking for.
Yeah. You faced literal reality.
Right.
So, and I was thinking about this at that time. And of course, every wrestler goes out on the road, to make their mark in the industry. And I'm gonna like fast track to reality. What was that first match going outside of reality to find that booking for a wrestling match in another city that isn't in the Houston area?
What was that experience, just going on the road and the whole like experience in general?
Yeah, and what was the event? What was the match that you remembered that's outside of reality that you took that booking when that happened?
Yeah, it was, let me think I'm pretty sure I was 15. Yes. It was a big, like, last minute thing, like the night before I found out that I was gonna have to go to Dallas to wrestle for Independent Wrestling Expo. And it was a huge show, whole bunch of
Oh,
names. And you know how I get around, like, famous people. So I was freaking out just being in the locker room.
trying to get starstruck.
Yeah. Right. It was completely last second, but I was so excited because I was so focused on, I guess, proving myself to everybody that I was around. I didn't realize, I'm like, "Oh, I got to go take over like all of the cities." So it was really motivating because I got to be in front of that different crowd. I got to have that experience. And like from there on, that's when I started texting promoters. I'm like, "Oh, I want to go to San Antonio now. I want to go to Austin now." And it really just, like, I didn't realize, like, "Oh, I don't have to stay here." It was so cool to go wrestle in Dallas just out of nowhere. And then, yeah, like I said, I kept reaching out to promoters, and that's how I was able to get to like California, Iowa, just recently wrestled in the Bahamas. So I just, I all of a sudden realized that I loved the traveling.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask that too, where even though you're still learning at reality, how much of your training and lessons that you've done, how has that been like applying to what you've learned to basically wrestling outside your territory?
I I've always, like, I know I said I stuck out when I would, go wrestle to other promotions in Texas from what I've learned, like at the Lion's Den and everything like that. But really, as- I never realized that how different the flavors of wrestling actually are in different
Okay.
regions of the United States. And I thought it would make me like the odd one out. They would be like, "Oh, like, what is she doing?" But it really, it really got me over, to be honest, because they weren't expecting, little me to start doing just random, like, how do I say it? It's just, it's Texas style. It's old school Texas style is a
Yeah.
lot of like what I'm based off of, like, in the end. And when I would go to like all the way up in Iowa and do it, the crowd would be like, "Oh, because it's intense, it's fast, it's kind of different from, I don't, maybe the slow catch wrestling you might see in the beginning of
Right.
a match." And in the end, I feel like that Texas style just made me stick out more, and that's how I was able to keep coming back to different states around the United States.
Because I was thinking of a couple of matches. This is where I kind of like knew a bit of how you're doing as a TWC. What was that? What was that handshake like? Working with them?
With Texas Wrestling Cartel.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I knew how it happened because I'm just so grateful for it. I was scared to death at first because it was my first time not wrestling in front of those family crowds. This is like for
Right.
the smart fans, the marks, as you would say. And I felt
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh, I can't be my normal corny self. That won't get over this time. And it was a challenge, and it ended up becoming like one of my favorite promotions to work at because I realized, you know, like I'm a teenager, like I want to cuss, I want to do stuff that I can't do like at other places. And I always have so much fun there. And the crowd ended up loving me. I was so scared that they weren't gonna, I wasn't cool enough. That
Right.
I wasn't what they wanted. But I ended up like, like I go back to what I said earlier, being myself. They ended up just, they fall in love with me. And now keep coming back there, and I keep, it's I'm really grateful for it. I'm happy you
There you
brought
go.
that up because it's something that's been on my mind recently about how I'm excited to keep coming back there.
Yeah, and it's nice seeing because you had like London Dior and then facing Izzy, which is kind of like that's a cool. Those were cool matches when I saw them both times. So it's like nice seeing that you're wrestling something that's outside of your comfort zone, and then like people have been taking off, especially with what you're doing in your career.
Like, if I can, real quick, wrestling Izzy, that is that might be one of my highlights of the year. I told Izzy, I was like, you don't understand. I used to watch your vlogs when I was like 13, and I would be really jealous of you. I would hate you. He's like, what? I like, cause I wanted to be famous like you. I wanted to be, cause she started training really young. I was like, I wanted to train and I wanted to be like a teenage sensation. But then I guess we both ended up being that anyway. So we clicked it off. We became besties like immediately. It was, and on top of that, I love the match. I thought for sure since,
That was fun. That was a fun match.
yes, I thought since she's more famous, like, okay, I'm gonna get booed. They're not gonna like me. Next thing you know, they're like booing Izzy. I'm like, oh, oh, you like it?
It's like,
It was fun.
thanks. I unintentionally got heat. That's what might have happened. Oh my goodness! And we're gonna be close to wrapping up. And you're in college. You mentioned it. You're in college, and um, what was it like to balance what you're doing at reality and doing your own route and your journey as a wrestler? How did you find to manage balance in doing schoolwork and training at reality and doing all these bookings throughout the year?
Oh, that's a good question. Every time somebody asks me that, I'm like, I didn't balance it. It was horrible. It was horrible.
I mean, that anything could be a habit at that point.
It was horrible, especially on school nights when I would go train at Reality of Wrestling. I'd get home around like 2 or 3 and then have to wake up at 6 or 7. It was horrible because I had so much homework because I graduated high school with my associate's degree. I was working on my associates the whole time. I was going
Okay.
to all those states out of the country and things like that. And like some people will even ask for advice. I'm like, I can't give you advice. That was stressful. That was like the worst 4 years ever. But I like the number one way that like I got through it was more of like the fear of failing. It's like I was
Okay.
like, I don't want to flunk. I don't want to fail high school because, you know, I was like, what if I'm not that good at wrestling? What if it like I felt it could have been me beating myself up like in multiple ways, left and right, beating myself up. But I guess at that time I had a fear of not making it in wrestling. So I was really determined to graduate with that associate's degree just because I didn't know how things were gonna go for me. But then of course, like I slapped myself, I'm like, what am I talking about? I think I'm all right. So,
Because I was thinking about that too. Because now that you're trying to, and it's interesting how. And I was thinking about as you were talking about it, like everyone's journey is different. Every person has a route to take to get to their destinations. Some may take longer than others. Some may take it shorter, but at least, and I'm going to ask this too, like when you got through figuring out how to balance everything, when did you start to get, okay, I want to, all right, I learned this at this point, okay, I won't do that again, or oh, I'm doing great here, I can keep going. Like when did you find those tiny little lessons that you got balancing wrestling and schoolwork?
I kind of came to the realization, like when during that time trying to balance both, it was so up and down, like highs and lows. And I went through therapy and everything, but then I started to realize just I I realized in the end some of it is about a good 60% of it is my fault. I,
Okay,
I
okay.
I'm a procrastinator. That's what I found out about myself. And I realized the habits that I do that produce happy results, and then the habits that I have that make me end up crying and stressed out. And I would still keep doing those bad habits, but then I realized over time that I deserve to give myself a happier life, like a more stress-free life so that I can focus on wrestling. So
Yeah.
I I guess it was just the strategy was to stop making myself feel sad by putting myself in those situations, if that makes sense.
Right. It just puts perspective into things too, because um wearing it with a certain shade of color may be different if you take it off. It's like, oh, I see that. So
Right.
that's how, like, it just changes the perception on and on living your life. Because that, what was it? There was a interview that I found out. John Cena's like control the controllable. What you can do. That's what you can. You would love to do things tomorrow, but it's 8:30 in the morning today. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, what I can do today is going to be what's going to happen. That will make me feel better. It's always in the present. Sometimes.
Right. And I was sick of making myself feel like, the world's coming after me. Like everybody's like how do I say it? Like I can't control that. Like why does school gotta be like that? Why does wrestling gotta be like that? And then, I started getting that mindset of, oh, I could just do this different and then it wouldn't be so bad.
So we'll end our conversation with this. And you were at a wrestling event, whether it's in reality or somewhere else, somewhere else on another wrestling event, and someone asks you, hey, you did great. Like, when can I start to become a wrestler?
Okay. Reality of wrestling is the place to start because you have all the tools you need. You have the wisdom from people with years and years of experience. You have, especially if like I've had this before, like young women coming up to me, I'm like, you have a sisterhood. And at a lot of different places, especially in Texas, you won't find,
Right.
and it's state of the art. Reality of wrestling is state of the art. It's the place to be if you want to be serious about making it in professional wrestling and being the best version of yourself. And I like I said before, especially when it comes to young women, I feel I feel the need to give as much like help as I can because I know like starting in the business originally I didn't have that until I made that transition to the reality of wrestling. So, say like a young girl comes up to me talking about how she wants to start. First things first, I'm gonna give her my Instagram or my number because that's what that's what Roxanne did to me whenever I walked up to her when I was 14.
Really?
Yeah, I was 14-year-old me. I walked up to Roxanne. I was like, I'm really inspired by you. I want to be where you are one day. And I got her number. She's like, you tell me if you need anything. You, you ask me any questions, ask me anything. And ever since that, I feel the need to like pass that on to the next girls that come after me.
Who were your wrestlers that you mentioned John Cena, but anyone who's in the women's division, who did you aspire? Of course, Roxanne will be one, but who else were your wrestlers in the women's division that you look up to as you started to train?
Always, as in, well, wait, as in like independent or in general?
It could be anyone. You can do WWE, but like any of the big promotions. Like, what were those wrestlers in the women's division that you looked up and aspired to?
Number one always have to be Mercedes Moné. She was the whole reason I felt like I could be a wrestler. Because I always watched wrestling growing up, but I didn't see myself doing it. I looked nothing like any of the girls that I saw on TV. But, you know, Sasha came on the screen. She's girly. She's mixed. She's biracial, just like me. And she was passionate about wrestling the same way that I am. And that's the number one thing that I took one look at her. I'm like, oh, I can be a wrestler. And that's such an important thing. And especially when I started training, on top of Roxanne, funny enough, like Alex Gracia, she was she was one of the first women's wrestlers that I ever met because she was booked on a Lions Pride show at the Lions Den. And well, just like Roxanne, she kind of became one of my people, and she helped me so much in deciding who I wanted to be, because I didn't know my character could be girly. It feels stupid to say now, but back then I didn't know because my favorite color is pink. I want to be pink just like her. I want to be girly like her. And she makes it cool because I was scared of that not being cool. So she made it cool so I could be cool. And yeah, that among many other girls, they all shaped me to the person that I am now.
Okay, awesome. So I have nothing left to give. You have the floor. Where can we find you? And thank you so much for having you on.
Of course, y'all can find me Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube at It's Mia Friday. And I also have a pro wrestling tee store. Type in Mia Friday. Go check your girl out. I'm in college. I'm broke. So come support.
I know that feeling. Okay, awesome. So we'll end this. We have one more episode on Crash Course for the season finale. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you on the finale of Crash Course. Bye, everybody.